Hello everyone and good evening. I'm wondering, as always, I will ask my favorite cameraman, my son Nikolai, how many are we on board? No one yet? All right, not a problem. We'll wait a little while until everyone is on board, and as usual we will start it up as soon as we have 3 or 5 participants. It might be just a little too early. Hello everyone. For those of you who are on board, would you mind writing your names in the chat box? I'd love to welcome you by name if possible. There are 4 of you, fantastic. 5, all right, any more? It's like a bidding, as if I'm bidding. You can already see what I'm going to be baking today. It's delicious, absolutely delicious. So I'm going to say hello. I think my cameraman has a message for me.
Zed Yar Khan is there, and Linda Zal is there as well.
Zayed, hello. I know I don't pronounce your name correctly. You'll have to correct me forever. Welcome on board, Zayed. And Linda, welcome on board as well. Thank you for coming. And who else has written their names in the chat box? Okay, it's actually going to be all right. But I'm going to welcome all of you. And as the program progresses, I would love you to write your names down so that I can actually welcome you by name. Okay, I'm holding but one of my favorite cakes. Actually, it's my favorite cake when I'm in Yemen. And it's called Binda Azachen. Binda Azachen, which means the daughter of the table. Very strange translation. But other Yemenites would say, no, not the daughter of the table, although traditionally it is said that. They prefer to say the beauty of the table. And this is indeed the beauty of the table. It's a cake that was traditionally made from almonds and no yeast. It was allowed to be fermented, and they used honey. And here, this cake is still respecting some of the traditional ingredients, or actually most of them, and they do use yeast, but they have no sugar, simply honey. And I still have the honey left from Yemen, but not from almost 30 years ago. It's the honey from Yemen which I bought in Abu Dhabi while living in Abu Dhabi. All right, I'm going to put this down, or we'll have a little close-up coming. I'm going to ask my son to give you a close-up. Have a look. It's all in layers. Look at this. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We have 8 layers. And this is the crispy version of the Binda Azachen. So for those of you who are going to be going to a Yemenite restaurant, if you're very lucky and you get Binda Azachen, order it. Absolutely worth it. I would love to taste it, but I have to put it down, because otherwise we'll never get going with baking. Okay, my cameraman has another message.
Good evening from Fausta. Good evening from Mariela.
Okay, wait a minute. Fausta, welcome on board. Mariela, hola, ¿qué tal? ¿Cómo estás?
And guten Abend from Mickey.
Hello, guten Abend, Mickey. Oh, yes, this is going to be a mixture with regards to languages. We have Mickey from Montreal, Canada. Then we have Abu Dhabi, and from many other countries as well. Okay, I'm going to put this temporarily down, and I am going to ask my cameraman to come a little closer. I'm going to show you this platter here is a typical Yemenite platter, which they use, and they call it the platter, although it's not, but it has a shape, and you can carry it anywhere you want to. Very light, you can roll it up. And here we have quiche. I'm going to ask the cameraman to come a little closer. And quiche happens to be the skin of the berry, and inside you would normally find the coffee beans. Now, why am I showing you this? Anything that is eaten in the Yemen in Yemen is accompanied with quiche, either before lunch, during lunch, after lunch. Often also as a welcoming sign, as a sign of hospitality. It's the identification of their country with regards to hospitality. Very different from what I have already taught you, for those of you who were on board before with me, how it's done in the Emirates. In the Emirates, it's entirely different with regards to welcoming the guest with tea or coffee. Here in Yemen, we are in Yemen today, they serve the kishre, which is they cook the skin of the berry, whereby inside you would find the coffee beans. They call it not only kishre, but if you're looking for it online, you would find it under cascara, which it means in Latin or in Spanish, the skin of the berry. Now, let me show you just something a little closer so that you can, actually see how the skin accommodates the coffee bean. There we go. See, we have the half of the coffee bean, and if I were to put them back into the little space here, this is where they would fit normally. And I found one amongst my little batch, and there I have the cascara or the quiche, the skin of the berry, and the bean as well. Now, which is actually, it's beautiful. The taste is not anywhere close or similar to coffee. Has nothing to do with coffee. It doesn't smell of coffee. It doesn't taste of coffee. So if we have time today, we're going to actually boil a little bit of the quiche, which goes along with the cake. Okay, the cake is very, very simple. And for those of you who think, oh, it might be a little difficult, not at all. We're going to start relatively fast. And so I'm going to introduce myself a little later when I see that we have sufficient time. However, I will mention the following. Why, you are asking, why Yemen? I lived in Yemen. I lived in Yemen long enough to have been integrated with the Yemenite society. I cooked with them, I lived with them, and we actually conceived my first child, my son, who's the cameraman tonight, and I was going to deliver my son in Yemen, but that did not work. The first Gulf War came the way. So I had to be flown out, which was an exception. They don't normally fly out pregnant women in their 7th month or so. However, the exceptions were done, and with the help of the army, we all were able to fly out. Okay, having said this, I'm going to say hello to another person.
No, Mariella asked toasted coffee.
No, Mariella. In fact, this is the skin of the coffee. It's not the coffee. The coffee bean we're not going to be using. We're only going to use the skin, which is the berry. You take the coffee out, we leave it behind, and we boil the skin. And I'm going to show you the recipe. We may have to extend the time a little bit, but I will show you. If we cannot make it tonight, then the next time when we meet, I will show you how to cook it. Very simple, very easy, and very healthy. All right, let's get started. There we go. Okay, if you want to write it down, you can. You don't have to. I will write the recipe into the chat box a little later after the show. So we're going to start off with the dry ingredients. I have 3 1/4 cups of plain, regular 405 European flour, which is your regular standard or cake flour, if you wish. It's 3 1/4 cups. And then let's go on with this. I have here I use instant yeast. And instant yeast, 1 tablespoon. However, if you prefer to use non-instant yeast, then you will have to dissolve it with 60 milliliter water. So here we go. We have our yeast, instant yeast, and it's 1 to 2 teaspoons of salt. And here we go with the salt. It's actually much better if you were to use Himalayan salt or any other salt that has absolutely no chemicals whatsoever. Our sea salt is no longer clean unless you're able to get especially clean sea salt. I have not found it yet. So this is why I switched to Himalayan salt. There we go. We have 2 teaspoons of salt, which go in there as well. And we're going to mix this very easily. Here we go. Just to make sure that it's properly mixed. and make sure that it's well mixed. Otherwise, the cake will not rise, and we will not be able to get these 8 or 9 sheets in between, or the layers we will not be able to get. Okay, so there we go. That's actually very good. Very easy. And now comes the liquid. 3 eggs, which we're going to, in fact, separate here. We're going to put this 3 eggs into this bowl. There we go. 1, 2, and 3. And we're going to mix it with my fork. Now, I did say before that if you're going to be using non-instant yeast, you will require the 60 milliliters of water. However, you will need the 60 milliliters of water in here anyways, but not mixed separately with the yeast. So I'm going to pour the 60 milliliters of water into the eggs. This is added liquid for the flour. In addition to what I have just poured into this recipient, I have a cup of melted butter, and try to get your organic butter so that you'll be very close to the flavor that we are trying to obtain tonight, that you would normally get or obtain in Yemen. In Yemen, when I was there, this is now, everything that was sold was still organic and very, very natural. The eggs, the butter, we were able to get local products. So here I am mixing it. I'm just going to make sure that I am mixing it properly. And I'm going to simply pour it into my flour mixture. As you can see, this is very, very simple. There we go. And what are we going to do now? We're going to do the following. I am just going to mix it ever so little bit, just a little. And the rest my machine will do. Now, what I'm going to show you is the following. I would normally, if you're doing this at home, you would have your machine at home. Bring it down and you use your dough hook. This is very important. Do not use any other hook. Just make sure that you use the dough hook. Now, I'm not going to have the machine running for 15 minutes, otherwise we're all going to get bored. But under normal circumstances, you're going to have this running 15 minutes until the dough has separated itself from the walls of the recipient. And it really takes 15 minutes. Now, if you want it even softer, go ahead and do it for 20 minutes. I normally do this for 20 minutes. The recipe calls for 15 minutes. 20 is fine if you have the patience. It's just wonderful. Now, let's just pretend that this particular dough is actually ready. And I'm going to bring you over to the other side. Now, which means the dough, when all this here is in one piece, you would leave it on the side, cover it with a towel for 30 minutes. After 30 minutes, you would cut the dough into into 10 pieces and roll them into a small ball and place them on a baking sheet. Cover it again for 30 minutes. This is just to allow them to rise, which is what happened. So this is how it looks like. There you go. This is after 30 minutes, actually 1 hour. You have the large dough for 30 minutes. You allow it to rest, followed by cutting the dough into 10 pieces and then shaping them into small balls. They're a little larger than a golf ball, and allow them to rise for another 30 minutes. Now, what are we going to do? In order for this cake to be successful, you would take any cake, the bottom part of the cake mold, and grease it with butter. Don't use margarine. I do not recommend it. It just doesn't work very well. Now, this is very European size. It's small and easy. However, I'm going to show you what is used in Yemen. In Yemen, they use this particular size or larger. We're going 40, 50, 60 centimeters. You can either use the flip side, and you would then grease the flip side and start layering the doughs, which means the sheets that I will be rolling with the rolling pin. So having said this, either you can do it in here and you bake it in your oven if it fits in your oven. In Yemen we have large ovens. Here in Europe they're very small, so I can fit a 30 centimeter plate or a cake mold, and this is normally used in Yemen. Wonderful concept and so easy. Can you imagine? Lovely large cake. Here we're going to go just a little bit smaller, which is fine. Oh, there's someone else on board.
Linda is asking, can you use oil?
Yes, Linda, you can use oil, but you have to know that it burns quickly. The heat is, in fact, penetrated through the cake a little too quickly. What you can do, if it's all right with you, is coconut oil. That has, it will actually not burn as quickly as if you were to use oil. You can use oil, just lower the temperature a little bit. All right? That okay? Good. So I have already greased this, and what we're going to do is the following. What you do, you take one of these balls and you start pressing with your hands, and we're going to go through this. There we go. And then the other way of doing it, you can stretch it if you wish. This is a lot of fun. There we go. And you can, if you're an expert at doing pizzas, well, then you're better than I am. So here we go. Then you can actually slap it, and it will increase in size. Or the other method is, you have brought it to this size, and I'm going to now place it on my counter, which has been floured already. You flip it once, and you flip it. You use your rolling pin, and you can stretch it this way. You can roll it. Just make sure it does not stick to your counter. There we go. We're going to extend the size. Okay, I'm going to stop here, and I'm going to surprise you. I'm going to now layer on this cake, the bottom part of my cake mold, and stretch it and flip it over and fold it over. I'm going to hold the dough with my left hand and pull. And simply, even if it breaks, it doesn't matter. You can always cover it. Just pull very gently, gently. It's a slow procedure, and especially if you're starting. And if you have broken the dough, it doesn't matter. You just cover it. There we go. And we're going to stretch it again. We keep stretching. As you can see, there's a little hole there, and that's all right. It's not a problem. Here we go. We're going to stretch it again. Again. And we're going to do this with most of these dough balls that we have here. Okay, there we go. So, however, what we are going to do now is we're going to use the butter that I have. It should be melted or soft. It's as you wish. And I'm just going to, it's easier when it's melted, but we're going to use it this way. And Linda, if you want to use oil, I have never used oil for the Binde Azachen, for this particular cake. I would suggest try it with coconut oil or coconut butter. Or if you have vegan butter, which you do have in Abu Dhabi, by the way, it's available at your health store and possibly now also at Lulu, but you may have to ask them first. So the more butter you apply, the tastier the cake. So it will depend on you. I put a lot of butter on it, a lot of butter. So this is just to make it very, very tasty, and it's very flavorful. Okay, and some other recipes call for butter and honey. I don't. In other words, I learned from the Yemenites in my area in Sana'a, the capital of Yemen, which for those of you who would like to visualize where Yemen is located, it's actually, it borders with Saudi Arabia and also with Oman. Lovely place. So, but with my friends in Sana'a, who actually taught me how to make this particular cake, they say most often than not, they don't combine both the butter and the honey. It's either or. However, the tastier is one with the butter, and you need the butter for the layers to actually take place. In other words, it's quasi a Middle East millefeuille, very similar. Okay, so we have that done. Shall we go on and do the next one? Okay, there we go. In the meantime, while I'm pressing this, oops, another question.
Akos says hola.
Hola, Akos, ¿cómo estás?
Linda says yes, vegan butter is available.
Excellent, very good. Linda, I would strongly suggest that you do get the vegan butter. Awesome, awesome. It works very well with it.
And Marisol says lecker.
Hola Marisol. Lecker? Ja, es ist lecker. So I really have an international team tonight. From India, from Hungary, from Abu Dhabi, Germany, and Italy. I think from Italy as well. Yes, Italy, definitely. There we go. I'm going to roll it out again. I'm just going to show you this. And while I am rolling, I'm going to tell you a little story. For those of you who ask why did I go to Yemen? Of all places, why did I go 30 years ago to Yemen? Some of you already know that that my husband he's no longer, but he was a German diplomat. And I was working in Montreal. I'm Canadian, for those of you who want to know. And I met Matthias, and he said, look, I live very far. Would you like to come with me? So I did go to Yemen, and I've never seen Yemen before, nor have I really heard of Yemen before. I'm quite embarrassed, but I did not hear of Yemen before. At any rate, I was impressed by Yemen. It was beautiful, beautiful. It is actually, and still today, despite all the wars they've had, is the most virgin country. It has not been touched yet. It's the most authentic Arabic country in the world. They still have their Bab al-Yemen. Bab al-Yemen is their souk, or their marketplace. Lovely. And they still have their jewelry and silver market, which used to be owned by Yemenite Jews. They're no longer there. They've been airlifted, I think it was in the 50s or in the 60s, to other places of the world. They chose Israel, and they're in Israel. But at any rate, they have lovely, lovely jewelry. And for those of you who are looking for songs, typically of Yemen, is a lady, she's Jewish as well, a Yemenite Jewish lady. Her name is Ofra Haza. Ofra Haza. Listen to her song, absolutely lovely. All right, we're going to now brush this with butter again. I'm using the organic butter. It actually smells of a cow stall. And this is how it should smell, for those of you who may have experience in the future of going or visiting Yemen, and I hope you do. I sincerely hope we will have the chance to visit Yemen, although Yemen is still not settled with regards to peace agreement, but as soon as they've signed the peace agreement, then you're able to probably visit at least Sana'a, the capital of former North Yemen and now Yemen. Okay, another layer. Shall we go for the next one? I'm going to go on. Yes, and I have another question. Thank you, cameraman.
GMA Salem says, greetings from Hungary.
Oh, hallo, Gisela, wie geht's dir? Ich freue mich, dass du auch dabei bist.
And then Sonia says, ciao.
Hola, ciao, Sonia, ¿qué tal, cómo estás? Bienvenida. Yeah?
And that's it.
That's it. Well, welcome to everyone, and I hope you're enjoying this. For those of you who just came on board now, don't worry. I will have the recipe in the chat box after our program tonight, so that you can actually enjoy a Yemenite afternoon or evening at your place. Now, this is what I've done. I'm going to now roll it again, just with a little bit of flour. One side, the other side, just very, very, very little. And I'm going to roll it just a little larger. It does not have to be a perfect circle, because I'm going to pull it. There we go. And here we go. I am now going to stretch this again. There we go. I'm going to Yes, were you able to show it? Oh, there we go. Okay, again, here I'm going to stretch it and press on it. And make sure that this has been pressed so that it will not be pulled back towards the center. And you don't have to worry because we're going to be cutting this afterwards. It'll look very, very pretty. There we go. And this is a little thicker, as you can see. So in fact, it could tolerate probably a 28 centimeter cake mold or platter or plate or the bottom part of the cake mold. There we go. So we're going to butter it again. And we're going to do this with the rest of these as well. Here we go. Now, when we were in Yemen, this was, you have to realize, this was 30 years ago. You are going to ask whether it was civilized. Oh yes, of course it was civilized. But they have very different rules and very different protocols and very different laws. So upon arrival in Yemen, my husband was called on a mission immediately. So I had absolutely no chance whatsoever in getting to know Yemen or even finding out where the stores are. The German embassy at that time had absolutely no time at that time, and I can understand that. They all had their work to do and they had their missions to accomplish. So I found the keys to the car and I took the car. I thought, well, I'm going to try. I'm going to take the risk. I have no idea whether we'll drive on the left or on the right side, but I will find out, and I will find out how Yemenites drive. Well, I can tell you right now, I was the only, as Canadians would say, Caucasian or only white person on that particular day driving my car towards Bab al Yemen, and I was only about 20 minutes away by car. I wanted to park my car in front of Bab al Yemen. Absolutely impossible. I was blocked by many, many cars, and I thought I was going to be kidnapped. No one had any intentions of kidnapping me. Do you know what took place? A feud, a fight between two Yemenite families. In fact, there were two jeeps in front of me. 5 men jumped out of one jeep, 10 out of the other jeep, and they had their swords. They're called jambiya. They're actually curved swords. Pulled them out, took the man, and ranked the jambiya, or the sword, the curved sword, into the lower abdominal area. I witnessed this. This was my first day in Yemen, and I wasn't shocked. I didn't have time to be shocked. Actually, it's not funny, but I had to laugh. This was my reaction. The poor fellow did not survive. They threw, effectively, this particular Yemenite, a young man, into the car, and they all drove off. I took my time to drive the car, and before I was able to put my keys back into the car to drive, knock on my window, a Yemenite who was able to speak English, and he said, "I'm so sorry that you had to witness this, but you have to know what happened. You have to also get used to it. I'm assuming that you are a diplomat. According to your car, yes, and please get used to it. There's nothing wrong. We have our own laws, and since that young man had already looked at, only with his eyes, had looked at the potential bride-to-be, and he wasn't supposed to see her before the marriage. He did, and therefore he had to pay with his life. So that's my first story. All right, I shall now keep on baking. I have a question. Yes, cameraman?
Piero Tina says, ciao con il.
Ah, Piero, ciao. Hola, ¿qué tal? ¿Cómo estás? De Italia, ¿cierto?
And Helen is also watching the program.
Oh, hello, Helen. Helen, which Helen, Nikolai?
Apraxin.
Helen Apraxin from Montreal. Welcome on board. Okay, so I've managed this, and now I'm going to roll it out again, just to make sure. And Helen, and everyone else who just came on board, don't worry about it. You can actually look at the video again, and the recipe will be inserted after the show into the chat box. All right, so you'll be able to do it. Okay, so for those of you who wonder why I know so many people in Montreal, I have my mother living there, and we know Helen from our she's a family member. Okay, as many of you tonight are also part of the family. Okay, I'm going to pull this and stretch this, and very soon, depending on time, because I still would like to make the tea. Nikolai, what time is it, please? Are we still okay with time?
1 second.
Okay, I'm going to butter this, just to make sure there's a lot of butter. So, there we go.
It is 1931.
Okay, good. So we have enough time. I have also lots of other stories. By the way, the stories that I have mentioned to you tonight, they're being edited for my storybook about my experiences abroad. And then some of them are fun, some of them are sad, some of them are very serious. Nothing political at all, but it's an interesting experience that I had in Yemen. And I'm glad that I met this Yemenite who was kind enough to explain to me what their laws are. Actually, they have their own laws. And according to this particular nice gentleman, he said the police is not given the respect that they should be given because the tribes, they have their own laws. Okay, now what I have done, I have layered, I think, 4 layers so far. I am not going to be doing all of them, otherwise I'll be here for a long time. I'll be doing one more, but I'm not going to butter it. And we're going to just pretend that we have done all the layers. Here we go. This is one way of doing it. And if you don't wish to use your rolling pin because you don't have one, you can use a bottle of wine. And those who are in Italy, I'm sure you always have a bottle of wine at home. And in Germany, you have a bottle of sparkling wine. And in Montreal, you may have the wine. Okay, I'm going to put it on straight onto the cake. And I'm going to ask the cameraman to come a little closer. I'm just going to stretch it again and place it onto the side. And just simply apply pressure so that we can have this particular layer right to the rim of the cake mold, meaning the bottom part of the cake mold. All right, no butter, but we will have something else. And I will show you in 1 minute. Now we're going to take this large knife and cut close to the metal. And we're just going to cut this in order to remove the overlap. There we go. You have to realize that we ate virtually every day Binde Azachen. Binde Azachen, as I said before, this is called Binde Azachen, this particular cake, the honey cake. The daughter of the table, or the beauty of the table. Okay, this I'm going to put aside. I'm going to reuse it a little later. Now, we're going to pretend that we have all 10 layers on this particular mold. It looks very flat, but it will rise once it's baking. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to use the same brush, and we're going to apply 1 egg yolk on top of the cake. And as much as you can, it's just 1 egg yolk is sufficient. There we go. We're just going to brush it right everywhere along the rim. Just make sure you have it absolutely everywhere. There we go. It's been actually exposed to the air for about a half an hour, and this is what happens to the egg yolk. It just hardens, but we have enough, which is good. All right, okay. Well, now that we have the, it's actually the egg yolk acts as a sheen on top of the cake, as well as an adhesive or a glue. Why? I will show you why. We're going to add nigella. Nigella is, I'm going to actually spread this on my hand. Nigella are considered, or they're sold as black sesame seeds or black seeds. They're not sesame at all. Actually, if you want the correct name is nigella, spelled Nigella, and you can get them fresh most of the time, although it's very strange, but I can get them fresh and organic through Amazon. When you buy them in Arabic stores or Asian stores, Turkish stores, Iranian stores, unfortunately, they're already rancid. They're quite old. This is the experience that I had. However, you come from different countries, and in the United Arab Emirates, it's always fresh. Lulu in the spice section. So I'm going to now ask the cameraman to come a little closer. I'm going to drop these, I'm just going to sprinkle the nigella, or the black seeds, on top of the binda azahan. It gives that very, very Arabic flavor. Most of the Arabic bread, especially in the United Arab Emirates, for those of you who come from there or who are living there, you will often see local bread, even Egyptian bread, covered with nigella or black seed or black sesame. But again, let me tell you, this is when you buy black sesame, make sure it's not the sesame. Make sure it's the nigella. And they have that word also written on the package. Okay, so what we're going to do is place this into the oven. Okay, before I do, there's another question.
Mariella asked, is it marmalade? It's the egg yolk.
Mariela, it's egg yolk. Egg yolk is the yellow part of the egg. So I separated the egg. Here, it's from the egg. I took the yellow, and let me just show you. Really easy. Here we go. Here. This is the egg white. And Mariela, I used here the egg yolk. This is what I used. I used the brush. I mixed it. And what I did, I applied it here to the top layer of the cake. And I think this is what's going to make it easy. There we go. See? It's lovely. And if I put more, it just means it will become a little bit orangey, a little darker, a little lighter. So there we go. So no marmalade, it's egg yolk. Okay, this will now go into the oven at 200 Celsius or 400 Fahrenheit for 25 minutes. However, since every oven is different, and especially in the United Arab Emirates, it's very different, check after 15 minutes. Check if it's nicely crispy and the color that I will show you soon, then take it out after 15 minutes. If your oven is calibrated, which means balanced, then stick with the 200 Celsius, 20 minutes, or 400 Fahrenheit, 20 minutes. But check after 15 minutes. Okay, I'm going to just put this into the oven. There we go. And I'm going to remove this. And I'll be right back. There, yes. So we still have a little bit of time. Okay.
38.
Okay. So what we're going to do, I'm going to also show you the typical tea that is always drunk anytime during the day. And when guests are welcome, they're not welcomed with one glass. They're given 2 glasses at the same time to show the hospitality and how much they actually welcome you, which is a beautiful and very sweet way of welcoming. Very different from the other Arabic countries that we have covered, different from Egypt, different from Syria, different from the United Arab Emirates. Absolutely lovely. So what I'm going to do is very easy. I will pour in 2 cups, a half a liter of water. And now this is where you're going to be surprised. I'm going to be adding a half a handful of these qishra, which is, again, as I said before, the skin of the berry. The coffee beans, they come in a red berry or reddish berry. And when you open the berry, you remove the coffee beans, you take them out, and you keep the shells. The Yemenites, they keep the shells, or they kept the shells, and there's a reason for this. In the southern part of Yemen, it's called one city, it's called Mocha, or Mocha, the Mocha coffee. They sold the coffee, but kept the skin, or the, as they call it officially in Amazon when you want to buy it, cascara. I will write it down. And they kept this for themselves. It does not taste or smell of coffee at all. It smells of a berry. So here we go. A half a handful. They always measure by the handful, or half a handful, a half a handful. And then from India, we have cassia cinnamon. If you have Ceylon, use your Ceylon, but in Yemen they use cassia. And I will just drop in half a stick. In we go. And I will add also 1 star of anise. There we go. And I will add 4 cloves. And now again, in order for the cloves to actually exude their perfume and their flavor, break the cap or break the head and drop it in. Remove the head and drop both inside. Again, drop the head or cut or remove the head. Here we go. Remove the head and drop it inside this kishre. Okay. Then what we're going to be adding is a small piece of ginger. And the ginger you can, I think I need a knife. There we go. And this is organic. It's been washed, so you don't have to peel it. When it's organic, don't peel it because you have all the vitamins and minerals inside here under the skin and under the and on top of the meat. Okay, so we're adding about I would say they liked a lot of ginger, so this is about 3-4 centimeters. It's 4 centimeters, 1 inch of ginger. Okay, and what we're also going to add are, this is lovely, very, very, very Yemenite. Everything smells of cardamom. And these are lovely, organic, wild cardamom that I was able to obtain, as it's also consumed in Yemen. There we go. I'm going to add them all. Very strong. Now, what you can also add, optional, is sugar. Yemenites prefer it with sugar. Although nowadays Yemenites living abroad, outside of Yemen, they don't add sugar any longer. What they used to add is honey. This was always done. So what you could do is either add the honey at the end and you boil this for a half an hour at medium low. So it's just bubbling ever so lightly for 30 minutes. Otherwise the flavor will not be coming to the surface. However, I have already prepared it for you. So I'm going to show you. I'm going to just move a few things here. And I'm going to ask my son to go back and show you the platter. There we go. So actually now my cameraman, you can come back, please. Yes, that's wonderful. Okay, now for those of you who are wondering, how does the cake look like? Here I'm going to come and ask the cameraman to come a little closer. We have 1 layer, 2, 3 and 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Oh, this is a 10 one. Okay, 10 layers. Now I have added a lot of butter, but this dough could actually tolerate a whole lot more butter if you're really into it. Now, on top of the cake, this is what I'm going to show you now. Here we go. This is how the cake looks like. Once you remove the cake from the oven, it's a bread. It's almost like a bread. This, I used a different flour here. I used the bread flour. The Yemenites prefer the bread flour. This was 30 years ago. Nowadays, they prefer the white flour, which is a little thinner and less heavy. So you can use this or eat this as a bread, as a sweet bread, or as a cake. When would Yemen or the Yemenites eat this? Before lunch, they would have a piece of the cake with kishre, the tea. They would also have it for breakfast. Instead of breakfast, they will have the binde azachen. For dinner, yes, for after dinner, or during dinner, or before dinner. So they have a completely different view and understanding when to eat a cake or a bread cake. Absolutely lovely. It's so fitting. Absolutely wonderful. So here I still have the honey which came from North Yemen, close to where they have shrubs and trees. They call it the forest, which is very sweet, but the flavor is intensive and wonderful. Now I'm going to show you how the Yemenites would do it. Here we go. We're just going to smother it with a lot of honey. There we go. This is how it should be done. Everywhere. And then you can spread it with your spoon if you wish. And you can layer, and in fact, you can add or pour at least 250 grams of honey on top of the cake and just allow it to pour down. I'm not going to put 200 or pour 250 ml of honey because my family will not eat it. But this is how it's eaten in the in Yemen. Now, you can decorate it this way, which is very important. The decoration is just as important as the flavor, the taste, and the fragrance. For Yemenite, in Yemen, for the Yemenites, what is important is the combination of honey, the butter, the flour, and the nigella, which smells so much like Yemen. So if you're on the road or in the capital, Sana'a, or in the northern part or the southern part, Mocha, or Aden, it smells honey, nigella, and butter. It's a beautiful combination. So I have displayed it this way, which is the modern way. The more traditional way, I'm going to ask the cameraman to go back here. The more traditional way would be using this particular basket, or the flat basket, or the platter as they call it, and the cake would be placed on this here. This is very, very traditional. Now, what is also eaten, it's here. I'm going to place the honey onto this plate here. And if you wish, you are wondering what this white cream is. It's whipping cream. It's very much how the Viennese would serve the Yemenite or the Binde Asachen cake in Vienna, which is really interesting. So I'm showing it to you the European way with whipping cream on top. Exquisite, by the way. I would not have thought of it. And in Yemen, it's eaten with the hands. And you dip the dough or the bread into the honey. It's a mess, I can tell you that right now. It's a big mess. And then you bring it towards your mouth. I'm not going to eat now because otherwise I have a problem. I will have a problem. But this is the reason why I displayed it the way you see it here already cut, is so the guests can help themselves. They can also take it and break it, which is a sign that you're eating the bread or eating it like a bread for breakfast. You don't have to break it. And we're going to pour the quiche, the tea. And allow me to give you all, or pour half a glass. Actually, right there, this is where the second rim is. This is where you stop. Very, very Arabic style. Although the glasses are from Lebanon, Yemenites use the same glasses and shaped in the same way. It's a lovely, lovely fragrance. So just predominantly it's in ginger, the fragrance, and then you smell the berry, followed by the cardamom and the cinnamon. It has to boil for 30 minutes for the flavors to come to the surface. Just love it. So you have to, don't add sugar. I would not add sugar. This is so sweet. It's absolutely worth it. Not putting any sugar in this. Now, last but not least, if you're going to be thinking of decorating or doing this at home or with your friends, there we go. We're going to, I have nigella here. This is powdered sugar. I know I'm going to go crazy now, but this is very European, but you can do it. Just go crazy. Just decorate it. This is very bistro style. Just go over it. And you can go on top of the plate, on the plate, all around it. Why not? Why not? Just make it pretty. There we go, all around it. And I did say last but not least, but I have one more item to put, which I forgot, which is very typical. I'm from Yemen. I'm just going to ask my son to move a little. Okay, there we go. Figs. Figs are eaten not year round, but almost. Figs are grown everywhere. I had in Sana'a, the capital of Yemen, I had 4 trees with 4 fig trees. They were just lovely. They were green figs. Just wonderful, wonderful. And here you can decorate it. This is just to make it not only pretty, but it tastes just wonderful with figs as well. So we are in the season of figs. They all come from Turkey. So here we go. I put this on top. No, here, this way, back to back. There, and the more the merrier. Here we go. In groups of 3 and 1 alone. So this is typical what you would get as a welcoming food, cake, bread, tea, and a fruit. It could be hinduwane, which is watermelon, or perhaps prickly pears that you would get. And if fig is in the season, then you would get figs. And a lovely, lovely cake that you can actually eat as a cake or as a bread. It's your choice. And again, before I finish, I would like to know if anyone else has a question.
There's a comment. Mariella says, vanilla sugar. Yes.
Yes, Mariella, you can use vanilla sugar. Absolutely, that's wonderful. Or you can use sugar without vanilla. It's entirely up to you. You can also add a little bit of ginger if you wish, but very little cardamom, or very little cinnamon if you wish, mixed with the sugar. Absolutely. And just stay there, Nikolai. I'm just going to bring one more thing, which in Yemen, nothing works without basil. Basil is the perfume for man. Why? Because they often don't wash their hair, which is fine. So as a decoration, there we go. Basil is used everywhere, wild basil, which tastes a little harsher. And there we go. You can decorate it this way. And last but not least, for those of you who know, in Yemen, the man, they wear a turban. It's called hebab. And the hebab, what do? Because they don't always wash it. Water is not always available, or scarcely. I'm going to show you. They would then just push it under their hair, like they did during the French Revolution. They wouldn't wash their hair either, so what? And they would just push it in, and then roll up or tie up the hebab or the turban, flip it to one side, and chew on their cut. For those of you who don't know what cut is, it's an amphetamine. They look like leaves from the rose tree. They chew it and they have a bubble. And they chew it all day long. And it looks like this. And let me just imitate them, what I did too. I shouldn't be saying this. The Americans call it a drug, but it's not a drug. Anyway, I'm going to show you. And you would stuff your cheek with the cut. They look like little leaves, or very, very, very miniature sized leaves, just like rose leaf. They would wash it down with Coke, and they would be happy all day, serving and eating the binde azachen, which is the daughter or the beauty of the table, the cake, or the tea called kishre. And now I have the basil in my mouth and in my hair. Okay, there we go. Very, very pretty, and it smells wonderful. With this thought in mind, I'm going to wish you all the best, and I'd like to thank you. And I also like to thank Bridges of Light and Gaetano Vivo for having me on his platform. Greatly appreciate it. And for any of you who would like to be on this channel, which is a spiritual and holistic channel, and you would like to talk or be interviewed, let me know, and you can be also part of this program. Once again, thank you so much to all of you. Thank you for coming, and I'll be seeing you next Thursday, same time.